Welcome to Light Sessions with Sloan, the podcast for women who know more is possible and want to bring it into their lives now. I am so happy to be having this conversation with you because you are my favorite person.
Oh, okay.
And also because we have such cool conversations together. And I think this is a really important one. So you and I basically came up with this idea to poll the kids
Yeah.
and ask what they'd like to hear about. And what did they say?
Well, we got an overwhelming response for why California is better than Canada, which was which may or may not be true, but it was my joke option. But then second to that was how to stop being mean to yourself and start feeling better.
And why do you think that's such a big one, that so many kids wanted to hear something about it?
I think that kids, they are mean to themselves, and being mean to yourself sucks. So,
do you notice that a lot, or how do you notice it showing up?
It's a lot of joking. Like, there's a weird culture of I'm so bad at this. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, me too, or whatever. There's a lot of dissing yourself.
Is it to be funny, or to have people say, no, that's not true, or what's?
Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's to be funny. Sometimes I think that's just what is perceived as cool. Like, it's not cool to be, frequently, kids won't think it's cool to love themselves. But I love myself, and I think people think I'm cool.
You're making it cool.
Yeah. I'm doing my best. I'm trying.
Yeah.
So,
So the other follow-up question I had to that is, do you think parents know how bad kids actually feel about themselves?
If parents had a bird's eye view from their highest self, and they could see all the ways that they beat up on themselves, it would be a lot more apparent. But I think that parents are clouded by their own pain and their own self-hatred. And when you're in that, it's really hard to see other people's pain. Because then you're like, oh, they have it so much better than I do. And you just don't notice all the ways that they're hurting too.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I have this impression sometimes when you talk about kids, it seems like they're suffering and struggling. And then I'm always curious if the parents know about it. And it sort of seems like sometimes, but generally not really. They're kind of off in their own world, and the kids seems like having a really hard time. Is that your impression, or?
It's hard to tell because obviously I don't know everyone. So I have a specific pool of people that I generally hang out with. And it mostly seems like parents aren't paying attention, not because they're bad at paying attention, but just because they don't know how, because their parents didn't pay attention when they were hurting.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know how to comfort their children and tell their children, hey, I understand, and I know it's hard, and I love you, but, and they don't know how to say that. And so the kids feel abandoned. And you and I were talking about this yesterday, I think, didn't Chatan say that he thinks everyone's core wound is rejection? If you go down far enough, and I think it's those parents have been rejected by their parents, so they don't know how to embrace their kids. They think that that rejection is how you parent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the parent and you're the kid. So there's a certain level of miscommunication and misunderstanding.
I get that. I feel like I'm constantly on this journey of working towards what is collaboration with you and me while I'm still being your mom, but also being in collaboration and in partnership, this life partnership that we are. So I could see that for sure. So what would you say to help kids who are being mean to themselves on the inside and feeling bad on the inside? Like, where should they start to change that?
Okay, so I think that the first step is wanting to change that. I know a lot of kids that beat up on themselves that don't seem to want to change because maybe they get attention for beating up on themselves, or a lot of people, obviously, you know this, and I know this, think it's easier to live in hate, live in fear. But they don't, it might be easier in the short run, but they don't realize that in the long run, it's so hard.
Easier like a habit?
Easier like a habit, and also more socially acceptable. And some this leads to the second point, which is they have to be willing to admit that they're wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me sometimes to admit that I actually did do a good job.
Mm.
That I'm wrong about some of the ways that I am.
Like wrong about not being good enough?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. To be like, wait a minute,
Maybe,
actually, I
yeah,
am kind of cool.
yeah, that's really hard to think about, and really hard to, like, at least for me, really hard to accept. Like, maybe I am cool. I don't know. Friends who are listening to this. Guys. No. Yeah, I think that's part of it. So I think that second step is, like, is recognizing, like, oh, maybe this feeling that I've just accepted as normal, maybe it is normal, but maybe it shouldn't be, you know? I could definitely think of a few people who, like, maybe they want to get better, but they're not willing to do that. Like, accept that that feeling is not healthy. I mean, they know it's not healthy, but you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then step number 3, probably for me, would be finding a teacher. Although this might come before step 1. Like, I think generally kids don't know that there is another way. So they need someone to show them that there is, and then they need to want it, accept that they're wrong, and then after that, maybe a teacher is helping through the whole process. But
That'd
I
be
think,
ideal.
like, that would be ideal. I do think that, like, I definitely know people who, like, want it, then find a teacher, and then accept that it's different than what they imagined, or find a teacher and then realize they want it and then put in the work, or, like, put in the work and then find a teacher and, like, go even further. But I think having a teacher is very important. And obviously, you're my teacher. I love you. And but you've been with me since the whole time. So
So when they find a teacher and are really getting into this acceptance of, like, wow, there's another way, and maybe the ways I've been thinking aren't serving me in the highest, do you have any suggestions of how they would actually start to change this meanness going on in the inside? Anything you've tried or worked or didn't work? Or
yeah, I think definitely one of the first things you had me do, which it sucked. Like, I don't know a better way to say it. It wasn't fun. And it sounds really simple, but it wasn't fun. It's looking myself in the mirror and saying affirmations that I can actually find a sliver of truth in. Like, you would have me do this when I would beat up on myself about how I look. You would be like, Colette, come on. And then we go sit in front of the mirror. And then you're like, okay. And you'd have me repeat after you when I was little. And it'd be something like, you'd be like, find 3 things that you love about how you look. And then look yourself in the eye and tell yourself, like, I love my eyes, for example. That's what I always went to because I like the color of my eyes. And I think I always have. And, like, when I'm feeling bad about the rest of me, I can always go back to that, like, basic thing. I've tried this for other people. I know that it's a very hard experience for others as well. Um, One time I tried it with a friend, and she couldn't find anything.
Mm.
And this friend is very beautiful, in my opinion. And she couldn't find one thing that she liked about herself. And I tried so many things. I was like, well, I just went super basic. I was like, okay, well, do you like your eye color? And she'd be like, eh. And I'm like, okay. Do you like the shape of your hands? Do you like your hair? Do you like, I don't know, like the shape of your face? Do you like your nose? Like, I just went through all these things, and she just kept saying no. And it was really hard because I disagreed. I was like, okay, well, actually, all the things I'm pointing out are very pretty, but
Mhm.
it was really hard for me to understand why she wouldn't just try. So I think that, like, this practice only works if you want it,
You want it.
You
That's
want
the
it and
key.
you're willing to accept that sometimes you can be wrong,
Yeah.
And then,
That.
yeah. So there's that, but it doesn't just work with like features too. It also works with like I'm smart. I'm kind. I'm funny,
Personal qualities.
personal qualities.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying too is, if you're not in the practice of doing that, it can feel really weird. It can feel hard. Like
It
you
feels
said in the beginning.
embarrassing. Like even if it's
Embarrassing.
just me in one room with a mirror, I'm like, oh, it's weird. Why am I doing this? It's weird.
But did you get used to it now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it all the time, but I think that's really one thing that helped kick off.
Mm, I love that. That's a great start. And I think it's really interesting to think about because it was for me too. When I first started this, I was doing this practice of looking myself in the eye in the mirror and saying, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And it felt so awkward and silly and dumb. And then now when I pull back and think about it, I'm like, isn't that wild that it's a common human experience to feel strange being in connection with yourself?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of world are we living in? But that is the
What
state.
is going
Yeah,
on?
wait, what? So I love that idea. Is there anything else that you would share if somebody was like, hey, I really want to shift this? Do you have any ideas? Is there anything else you feel like is important, at least for getting started, for them to keep in mind or do or not do?
I think reading. I mean, there are obviously like books that and you tell me the whole plot, so I don't read them. But I think that like if they're wanting to do this and they don't have someone who can teach them, there are always resources, books, podcasts, find one that you like and that's entertaining. And then I think the biggest step of that is like putting what you learn into practice. So if you're reading a book and it's like, okay, it tells a story and then they're like, for every one bad thought you have about yourself, say two good thoughts. I don't know. Then you have to like do it.
Yeah.
Which might be hard. Or if people are like, I really expanded my thinking through meditation, try it. Meditation is interesting. It's really hard in the beginning, but then it gets a lot easier and then you feel really good. So there's that. But yeah, like try it for a month. See if you like it. See if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, okay. But you can try something else,
And is there any advice or thing you would say to a parent who is wanting to either support their kid more or be there for their kid in this mean thoughts, mean to self kind of situation?
Yeah. So something you told me ever since I was little that it was very hard to stomach, admittedly, is you can only love other people as much as you love yourself.
Mm.
And I see it again and again with like people that I watch or adults that I watch grow. It's like, and kids my age, and like it's like when the parent, we talked about earlier how like the parent can't see the child's pain because they're in so much pain. And it's like, okay, if as an adult you can work on yourself, it's really going to impact your kid.
I love
It brings trust, it brings love, it brings joy, and then you can be that teacher for your kid if you want to, and then your kid feels a lot more safe and loved and happy, and then when they're in that safe, love, happy environment, they can work on it themselves. And yeah, I just think that you can't just help your kid before you help yourself.
I love that.
Because that doesn't work.
Yes. So, so true. Well, thank you. I love having this conversation with you. I'm so happy to be here together.
Thanks for inviting me.
Love you, baby.
Love you, Mama.
So sweet. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Light Sessions. Follow me on Instagram at Hard and Sloan. Click the link in the show notes. Can't wait to connect with you soon.